Hey y'all, my name is Tamara Andress. I am your Fit and Faith podcast host, and I am pumped to be here. Just me, no words, no scripts, no intros, no outros. I love authenticity. I hope to breed vulnerability, and I usually do this alongside another dreamer, mover, shaker, entrepreneur, passionista is what I love to call them. If you're a dude, then a dude. But I am loving just coming together in community with other people to share their high and low stories, to share their journeys to come back, because I believe ultimately that's where God would have us. He would have us on the mountaintop. And even though we learn a ton in the pit and in the valley, God would want us right now, especially in this season of life, in this time of our culture, to shine. And so here I am. I want to teach you how to shine. I want to be alongside you when you get your glow. I want to catapult you into your calling, whatever that is. So this isn't a fitness podcast. This is not a religious banter, though we preach Jesus all day long. And this is not just about nutrition or health or wealth, though I like some green, and I know you do too. It's not okay for us to not be okay with talking about all of these things in unison. You guys, we don't just need a mental health podcast. We don't just need a fitness podcast. We don't just need a religious, spiritual podcast. It needs to blend. This is what Fit and Faith is all about. It's all about creating alignment, connectivity. It's about pursuing your wholeness and claiming it over your life and over the lives of the loved ones that you have around you in your community. So thank you for tuning in. I would love to get to know you more. You can like, review, subscribe, whatever it is. Send me an email, DM me. It's me. I have an amazing team alongside me, but you guys are getting me for now. So enjoy. I'm so pumped to have a coffee conversation with you, is what I'd love to call them. Don't have my coffee right now, but I have it in my system, as you can see. All the love. Let's do this together and keep going for your dreams, y'all. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here. I'm going to introduce you to somebody that I have become a fast friend with, and I am so grateful. Traveled all the way from Washington State, not Florida, if you were on our Instagram stories earlier. I was like, oh, our Florida girl's here. No. It's totally opposite coast. But we're excited to have you, and I'm so grateful for the friendship that sparked so quickly last year at the She Speaks conference. And we'll tell you more about that as today goes on. But the intent of having her come out was not just to share who she is as a person, to share her testimony, but just to provide encouragement to women and men in marriages and people of all walks to know that there is somebody greater than ourselves that keeps us aligned and at peace with everything else that can go on in our lives. Good, bad, ugly, scary, hard, fearful. So Stephanie has quite the testimony, as do all of us as I'm learning. The more authentic that we can become with others, the more real and open they can become with us. And that is, I feel, where true learning and true relationship and true love are cultivated. So I'm just excited to have this space as an opportunity to allow people to come inside, sit at the table, instead of feeling like they're just peering through a window into what people's lives can often look like on social media. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you.
She has a ministry called Reclaimed, and we're going to learn about that throughout today. But I'd love for you just to introduce yourself and kind of talk a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm from Linden, Washington, which is not Florida.
I don't know where I got that from.
I know. So Linden is about 2 hours north of Seattle. We're right at the Canadian border. Beautiful little Dutch town. Grew up in that area all of my life. I've got like generations of family surrounding me, so it's hard to escape family when they're right there. I grew up in a Christian family, Christian home. Went to church twice every Sunday. Christian schools. And so that's my, my background. Currently married almost 17 years. This May will be 17 years. Yep. And we've got 4 kids. Our youngest, Bailey, she's 3. My husband's at home trying to potty train her. So I'm fingers crossed that maybe it's done before I get home.
That's amazing. Like, love you, babe.
Yes. Here's the panties.
Yes.
Take care of it.
So good.
I have to say, this is such a rabbit trail. Potty training is the worst part of parenting.
You think?
Absolutely.
Nobody tells you that.
No, not at all.
Especially because you're like, oh, I just got past the baby stage. I get to sleep.
Yeah.
You're like, just kidding.
Just kidding.
Now you get to potty train.
Yes.
It starts all over.
Yeah. Not part of the ministry.
Could be. Could be. You could save some souls.
Yes,
just so you know,
it's
potty
probably
training
a ministry
sucks.
of its own, right? Potty training for moms.
Absolutely. That's hilarious.
Support group.
Yes.
So our youngest is 3, and then we have Miriam, she's 7. And Charlie, our only son, he's 11, and then our oldest is 14, Addison. So 4 kids, married 17 years. We do have a brand new puppy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
See, now you're potty training too.
I know.
I don't know if you
Who's
thought
the
that
stupid
through.
one? We did not think this through at all.
Not so much.
But this puppy love, it's just,
It
it's so
is.
wonderful.
I love puppy breath, actually, too.
I don't feel like she has puppy breath.
No.
Yeah, but she still poops plenty.
Oh,
so,
yes.
yeah, there's give and takes, right?
It's so true. So I love, like, even just knowing your family dynamic, I think it'd be a cool story to kind of jump into the fact that you have biological children, but you also have the adoptive children.
Yeah,
so share
we
about,
do.
like, how that experience went and what it's like even now, just relationally.
Oh, man, we don't have enough time.
I know, I'm sure. That's a whole thing.
Yeah, so we were married for, goodness, I don't even know how long we were married for. This was probably 10 years, and we were done, permanently done. Tim went and had the procedure. Like, there was no more babies. We had 2. We had a boy and a girl, one for each hand.
Yes.
Like, said, done,
I'm there.
right?
I
Yeah.
get that.
And so we didn't, more kids was not on our radar.
Yeah.
And Tim read the book by, I want to say it's Kimberly Smith, called The Hole in Our Gospel.
Okay.
And he got done, and he goes, I think we're supposed to adopt a baby.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm like, what?
Oh,
we
my
were done.
gosh.
Another baby.
And from the guy. Like,
Yes.
that's really interesting.
Yeah, and this book was talking about, kids overseas and in the orphanages, and he was just really, it was pressed on his heart. Like, God kept calling him to adoption. So he spoke this into me, and I then read the book, and at a different time, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to feel this calling. Like, maybe we are to adopt a child. And so my heart was starting to grow to the idea. And our church family has a huge adoptive family. So it wasn't like we'd be the only adoptive family in our community. So we prayed about it, and a little bit more about our testimony. This was about 2 years after his confession. Yeah. So I'm going, like, are we ready to bring on more kids?
Sure.
Like, are we crazy?
Sure.
And so we started pursuing an international adoption. We met with a local social worker, and she goes, what about the kids in your own neighborhood? And that was convicting because, you think of adoption, you instantly think, like an, African orphanage.
Yeah, of course.
And, I got to save this poor child.
Yeah.
And at this time was when the big earthquake happened in Haiti.
Okay.
And so we were pursuing a child from Haiti. And just door after door it was closing until we talked to Joanne, the social worker, and she goes, think about, in Washington State.
Wow.
So our hearts instantly changed.
Yeah.
And we started pursuing a private state adoption.
Wow.
And cool story about how we got Miriam's name was it was about 2 months before her birth mom. We were contacted by her birth parents and placed with her situation. My oldest daughter, Addison, and I were watching the movie The Prince of Egypt.
Yeah.
And there's a part in the movie where Moses runs from the palace, and he's running away from his family, and he bumps into his biological brother and sister. Wow. And the whole room went quiet, and I heard God say, this is what your daughter will be. Her name will be Miriam.
Wow.
And I'm looking at the cartoon figure of Miriam going like, oh my goodness, she's going to have brown eyes. She's going to have brown hair. Her name's going to be Miriam. And so I talked to Addison. I'm like, did you hear that? She's like, Mom, quiet. I'm watching the movie. I'm like, did you hear that? Like,
yeah.
What, hello? Like, God just spoke. Did you not hear this? And so again, I heard God say, this will be your daughter. I'm like, okay. Did you hear that one? And she's like, shh, quiet, Mom. So I quick checked the meaning of what Miriam means in the Aramaic and Hebrew meaning, and it means longed for and wished for.
Wow.
And so I immediately called my husband. I was like, I think we're going to have a daughter. And I think her name is supposed to be Miriam. He's like, okay, love it. And then her middle name is after her grandma, my husband's mom, Judith.
Yeah.
So we had no idea. We had no situation. You know, our family was not matched with a family yet.
Sure.
And a month later, we got the call saying a family had chosen us. We met our birth parents, and they looked exactly like the cartoon Miriam. It was just like totally God in every step of the way.
Yeah.
So, and all of her biological siblings have M names.
Wow.
So it was just,
perfect.
it was perfect. So,
and then for her to know that story as she grows into that, because I knew we were talking about the concept of like how children innately long for that connection, no matter if they have it, if they're with their birth parents or not. And I experienced that in my own family with my sibling, and there's just that yearning to know whose I am, and for you to gift her with the knowledge of I was longed for, and for her to always know that in her heart
she was chosen.
She was
chosen.
Yeah, and yours.
Yeah, and that's not an easy road. I'm not saying that.
Gosh, no. I know.
It's been easy. It's been really hard.
Yeah.
There's days where I feel like I'm the biggest failure as a mom because I'm not doing her well.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the trauma well. And we parent out of trauma daily.
Yeah.
Daily.
But I mean, I don't have adoptive children. I actually don't even really know anybody super close that has it other than my godmama, who's amazing, but all of her kids are raised. And so I don't really see it other than the fact that they're grown adults now and her heart for them. But she tells me stories all the time. But I too feel that way as a mom, that I don't live up to the expectations that I put on myself, or even maybe as amazing as my mom raised us, that I didn't meet those standards, or because I'm choosing a different path of like creating and growing something of my own, that I feel like the guilt of the mommy guilt that we all always hear about. It's like so real and so
it's very real.
Hard. I mean, my son, I'll leave sometimes and it's bedtime because dad's at work all day and I'm with him in Waverly all day. And then it's, when am I going to get it done? There's only certain hours that I can do this, and I know I'm called to it. And so it makes it really like a spirit, struggle all the time. And seeing your son say, why do you always leave?
Yeah.
Or can you just stay tonight and cuddle me? And
mommy, put your phone down. How many of us have been told that, right? In this day and age when everything is technology driven.
He told me that one day. He said, you don't love me like you love your computer.
Oh, ouch.
And I about died.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm like, dude, I was just with you for 24 hours uninterrupted with no devices whatsoever. Actually, it was 48 hours at the Great Wolf Lodge. I'm like, I didn't pick up my phone at all unless I was maybe taking a picture. We were submerged in water, so it wasn't very often. And my heart, I was just like, man, like I wish that I could just freeze this moment and later down the road, like share with you all of the many things that I know are going to come of what I'm putting in now. So know that like you're going through something completely different, but as moms, we can all so relate with that like guilt pressure of.
Well, and I think one thing that I have learned to just repeat in my heart is when you're having a bad day and when the trauma surfaces and when she's hurling insults at me and when she's saying like, you're the worst mom ever. And when she's just the grief and the loss is speaking and not my daughter speaking, it's her, the emotion that's talking. In that moment, I have to realize that God chose me to be her mom. Like God made all those connections happen for her purpose and for ours. Like she was meant to be my daughter and I was meant and called to be her mom. So even though in the moment, it's quite sucky.
It is.
I want to quit and walk out the door. I have to remind myself that no matter how hard this is, I'm still going to love her. I'm still going to choose her. I'm going to love her no matter what and through whatever situation we have to come with,
And what an emulation of the way that God loves us. Right? I mean, I truly never comprehended the concept of God the Father
in my entire life because of my own family dynamics, because of what I viewed a man versus a woman for so long. I couldn't comprehend like him looking at me like a sweet little angel of a kid, and because I wasn't that, and I felt unworthy of that type of love. And since having children, like, wow, the way that you look at them in such adoration, no matter if they're saying the most hurtful things to you or they're being little punks, like you just are like, they go to sleep and they're soundly sleeping there and you're staring at them and you're like, wow, I love you so big. I love you so much. And that is a part of the way that I was like comprehending how God loves me for the first time in my life. And that's why I think I said this previously, but like, I know that I was purposed to be their mom first before fully coming into communication, relationship, contact with God, because I wasn't walking it out to the fullest extent. I didn't fully have a relationship with the Lord for my whole life until I was late 20s. And to gather that now, it's amazing. And I'm so grateful. And I wish I fully comprehended it earlier. But I was really good at putting on like the Christian face. I went to church. I did those things. I didn't grow up in a church, so it was a little bit different than your story. But I walked out what I thought was being a Christian for a really long time. And I often refer to it as a little C Christian versus a big C Christian.
Yes.
And there's a lot of little C Christians in the world. And I don't think that it's anybody's necessarily fault. You can't like pinpoint one thing or another, denominations, church practices, how the gospel's being treated or preached. But there's this relationship with God that creates the big C Christian. You don't need a church. You don't need a denomination. You don't need anything that is man-made to comprehend that type of love. So I'm grateful for that. And I'm sure as you've unfolded your experience and your testimony, I'd love to hear like, you briefly discussed pre-confession versus post-confession. I'd love for you to share what that means to you, and then kind of touch base on that topic of how did you see God then and experience God before, and how do you see God now?
Okay, so we're going to go into the big story here.
Yes. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. So in year 7 of our marriage, at this point, Addison was probably like 4.5, and Charlie was just over a year. Tim had, a little backstory. During the pregnancy with Charlie, there was a little bit of a pregnancy scare at first. Okay. And so during his pregnancy, there was this kind of pulling away from Tim and I. And it wasn't like I was unhappy in my marriage. You just kind of felt a little bit more of a distance between the two of us, a little bit less communication. He was getting more busy at work. Certain things I noticed he wasn't as present for. And so that is the backstory. Now, I wasn't unhappy in my marriage. There's just things that I wish were a little bit better.
Yeah.
So then April of 2009, Charlie was just over a year, and Tim had come home, and the night before I had found a deleted email that just did not sit right, and Tim was made aware of that. But then the next day he came home and he confessed to what was the second hardest moment in my life. And that's when he confessed to a 10-year pornography addiction, which then led to multiple affairs. And talk about a brick wall. I felt so stupid in that moment. Like you would think that there would be all these red flags, and there was nothing. Yeah. Now I can look back and be like, oh, the deleted computer history. Like, why didn't I notice that? But I had no reason to look. Yeah. So if you have no reason to look, why are you searching? Like, my job is not to be an investigator. My job is to be a wife. Yeah. So I was hit with this big bombshell. And in this moment of Tim confessing to me, he was free, because the secret that he held on to for so long was finally off of him. Like, he was free of the chains. The bondage was gone. The enemy no longer held him captive. Yeah. But it all emptied on my lap. And so that whole burden transferred to me. And that is the beginning of my story.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I think that's when my faith became real. Because in that moment, like I said, I grew up in a Christian home, Christian family. I knew the Bible.
Yeah.
Like, I knew what being a Christian looks like.
Yeah.
I knew all the steps. I knew what to say, when to say it.
Mm-hmm.
But until you're met with this kind of moment and confession, the only thing that had not betrayed me was God's word.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I knew to be true.
Yeah.
And so I clung to that like it was my oxygen tank. Like that was my lifeline. There was nothing else that was going to get me through that.
Yeah.
And like I said this morning over breakfast, in the moment of confession, the human instinct is to like kill the person confessing.
Yeah, sure.
And by the grace of God,
I
sat there peacefully. Yeah. And it was just silent tears coming down my cheeks. And I remember looking outside and like the whole room just kind of quieted and just came down into this small little, it just felt warm. That was probably the shock starting to set in.
Sure.
And I remember hearing God's audible voice saying, "It is well." And, it's hard to accept that, okay, God, like this is not well. How are you possibly going to make this a well situation? Because this is hell right now.
Right.
And this is only a couple seconds into it, but this is hell. And so I clung to those words, and I really don't remember much of what Tim said past that point. But when he got done, he fell to the floor and was just weeping for joy because this burden, like I said, the secret that he'd been carrying for so long, our entire existence as a couple, dating years and married years, it was finally out.
Yeah.
And so he was able to start, living.
Yeah.
And I'm just picking up pieces, too shattered to pick up. And so I raced to church. The financial guy was the only guy at church. This poor guy, I know.
They're the greatest at emotions, right?
He sees this female that's just completely just broken, and he's like, I'm sure he wanted to just quickly lock the door, but he let me in, and he found somebody else to come alongside me and met me and helped me process, and that was such a catalyst for me for healing because it really started the right thinking, versus calling somebody and just starting to beat him into the ground.
Absolutely.
And so I was met with prayer. I was met with open arms. I was met with no judgment. Tim confessed really well. He had prepared that confession. And so he had our kids removed from the home. So I didn't have that burden of having to like keep his happy face with the kids around. So he did confession really well. If you can have a good way of
note to self.
But he prepared it in a way so that he gave me time to process afterwards. And so later on that night, I met with our pastor. My girlfriend and I did. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea. Tim at this time is in our basement taking care of the kids. I had no idea. I didn't know, divorce? Well, why would I divorce him? But how am I going to stay married to him? I think I might have to forgive him, but I don't know how to do this.
Right.
You're just as a female, as a fixer,
yes,
as a conflict avoider and a codependent. You want to fix things immediately. And so that's kind of how I went into this. Okay, I'm going to have to go back to work full time so that I can, supply income for maybe if I have to move out. But then, okay, so what about this situation? Okay, I'll shuffle this around. I instantly
your mind
to
is constant.
Fix it.
Of course.
And my pastor and his wife are sitting in the living room, and he says, "I'm just going to tell you one thing. You need to forgive as you've been forgiven." I'm like, how dare you?
How
dare you tell me?
It's been less than 24 hours. Can I just stop my feet like a little kid?
I want a little bitty party. And he told me that, and he allowed me just to process. But then he said, in order for you to process, you need space. And so our pastor, who've become really good friends and mentors, he said, I'll go do it for you. Because in my vows, I said, till death do us part, sickness and in health. But I never said, and until you cheat on me, then I'm going to ask you to move out of the home. That was not part of my vow. And so I really wrestled with this idea of I need space, and that means he has to get out of the home.
I wrestle with that even as you're saying it. I'm like, I don't know know about that.
Yeah, it was so hard. And so he was very willing to go. And so he made the drive across town. Yeah. And he said, stay at the house until I give you the okay. He went to our house and he walked in and Tim was sitting on the couch. He goes, it's time to pack your bags. Wow. And so our pastor helped pack the bag with Tim. And he said, I'll stay here with the kids until she gets back home. And then he helped him to the door. He walked him to the door and sent him away. And I came home to my pastor and our kids sleeping and not my husband.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So for 10 days, you said?
We were separated for 10 days.
And so what was that like time? I mean, it's such a weird limbo because like you said, you still didn't know what the decision was. Yeah. And it's just a wrestle of inner emotions. And I can't imagine, like, you see your husband and your children. So he's with you every day, regardless of where his body is. He's in your home. He's in your bed. He's in all of these places. Like,
and it pisses you
off.
God,
can I say that? Yes, you can. I am sure. You're like wanted to punch the pillow and throw that in the trash and get his clothes out. Yeah, I could imagine all the emotions, but then wrestling with that one statement, forgive as you've been forgiven.
Yeah. Yeah. So that first night, once I came home from our pastor's house, meeting with them, my girlfriend stayed with me. My mom was down in Portland. Yeah. This is another backstory. My parents were down in Portland, Oregon, visiting with my sister who was awaiting some PET scan results. And so they actually came back clear. So they were celebrating. Yeah. And I just didn't have the heart to call and be like, hey, in the middle of your celebration, guess what?
Yeah. Just need to chat real quick.
Yeah. And so my mom immediately turned back and she came back home. Yeah. She drove 10 hours that day to Portland and then right back home. She came back to rescue me. And so my girlfriend stayed with me from about 9 o'clock to midnight, that first night of confession. And in that time period, it was just like, Linda, what would you do?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. You just want as much advice as possible. And you're just like trying to take it all in. But the first thing I did after coming home was I took a shower. Yeah. And I had mentioned this earlier as well. But what the confession did to me emotionally and physically, like I felt so dirty. Yeah. Because in my head, I had those women's filth on me. I was wearing Tim's sins. I was wearing Tim's lies. The confession, the filth, just the grossness of what a pornography addiction looks like. Yeah. All of that, it was so weighted and so dirty that I got in the shower and I cranked that water up so hot. And I was scrubbing my arms so hard, my arms were bleeding because I just could not wash it off enough. There was not enough soap to get the confession. I'm just like, if I take a shower, if I just wash this off, I'll be clean. Absolutely. But I felt so dirty, so dirty and violated by that confession. And so that night was really hard. I did not sleep for weeks.
I'm sure. I
didn't eat for 10 days. I lost so much weight. Wow. Clothes were just like falling off. My mom was trying to force me just to have water, and it just made me so sick. It was like God put me on a fast for our marriage, even though I didn't want to fast for it.
Wow, that's a really powerful process for it. Yeah, and we were talking about this as well as like what happens to your body when you're experiencing stress. So whether I would love to hear Tim's side of the story one day and to hear like what he was doing for that 10 days, because I'm sure it had similar components of you don't wrestle with it the same of any confession of any sort, and at the same time your body is like processing it just your mind is processing it.
Here's the funny thing is, so he went to his dad's after our pastor kicked him out, walked him out, and he just showed up at his dad's house. And his dad, obviously when your son shows up with a duffel bag, something's going on. And so my father-in-law said, do you want a bowl of ice cream? And before he even went into asking questions, they sat and they had a bowl of ice cream together.
Talk about the prodigal son. Yes. I'm like, I don't have a feast for you, but let me give you ice cream.
Yes. And so he was there for most of our separation.
Wow.
And this is, I don't even know why I did this, but a couple of days into separation, I'm like, he probably has no food to eat there. I need to go get him food. I went grocery shopping for him.
Wow.
I bought him food and I showed up during the day when I knew he wasn't going to be there. My father-in-law is going, what are you doing? I'm like, I brought him food. I brought him groceries. What are you doing? I'm like, I thought he needed these, you know?
Habit and
I don't even know why. I look back to that. I'm like, you fool. Like, why did you waste food like that?
It's like the love that you're like, we're so used to showing.
Yeah. You know, when I would sit at the computer and I was like, oh, is he going to email me? Like you crave the conversation, you crave that connection, and yet in the same moment, it's so repulsive. Yeah. And on the flip side, Tim would actually pull into our driveway. This is kind of creepy. Yeah. He would pull into our driveway around midnight, and he would just turn his truck off, turn the lights off, just to see if there was a light that came on, because I'm this mom with 2 young children in the home, and I'm doing this on my own. Yeah. And so he's got this burden as she's now a single mom. I want to go in and help her, and yet I'm not welcomed into the home. And so it was this weird, weird time of wanting to communicate and not wanting to. And
that's so tough.
And I think it was day 3 post-confession. That's, you talk about grief and the different stages of grief. And I was clearly in my angry stage. Yeah. And I remember waking up and my mom's like, how are you doing this morning? And I think it was like Sunday at this point. And I knew that eventually she would have to go home. Yeah. Home being like 15 minutes away.
Sure.
It's not that far away. And like right next door. And so I was in my head thinking, I need to learn to do this on my own. Because I don't know how long this is going to go for. I don't know how long we're going to be separated for. Right. So I was like, okay, I need to get prepared. And I said, Mom, we're going to Target. And she kind of looked at me.
Everything.
I know, Target does. I love Target. It's
on
never
totally
just one
different
thing.
lighthearted moment.
Yeah. So I was like, storm charging. Target at this point. And in my head, in my very broken, mindset at this point, I had no bra on. Yeah. I had not brushed my hair. I had not. My face was so swollen from crying for so many days in a row. There was no makeup. Yeah. The sweatshirt went all the way down to my fingertips, and then it was one of those sweatshirts, like a man's sweatshirt that had like a collar. Yeah. So I had it up, so all you saw was my face and my fingertips, and I had baggy sweats that probably had lots of filth on them. Like I looked like a mess. I was I was a hot mess. Yeah. I'm like, Mom, we're going to Target. And she questioned me like, are you sure this is okay? I'm like, yep, we're going to Target. We're going. And so she walked about 10 feet behind me as I'm just like taking this cart through the store. I bought new towels. I bought new bedding. Oh, wow. I bought a new comforter. I bought new underwear for Tim. Like anything, the pornography addiction. Sure. Now, mind you, the affairs did not happen in our home, but anything that addiction had touched is gone. Yeah. Like, get rid of it. I do not want it to be in my home. Yep. And so I bought it all. I was like on a mission. All new. Yes. Yeah. And now I'm so sorry, Mom, for making her have to go through the store with the kids. Yeah. But on the way home from that shopping trip, I had said to her, like, I'm just craving his touch, and not in a sexual way. Oh, yeah, sure. That physically made me ill, but like just like a hug. Yeah. I just want to know, like, is there hope? I just want to hug. And it just so happened that the way we had it worked out was that so Tim would come home at dinner time, and he would give the kids dinner, he would put them to bed, and then I would come home. So during that separation, we had every night, he'd have like 3 hours with the kids. Gotcha. And so we had come home from Target, and he was in the driveway doing the pass by, and my mom grabbed him and said, just give her a hug. She wants a hug. That was the ugliest, the hardest, the most emotional, packed in hug that we've ever had. And it wasn't like it was like, this is a hopeful hug. This is just, I need this. Like, I've been your wife for 7 years. We've been together for 10 years. Like, even though you repulse me, I still crave that. Yeah, yeah. And I've talked to a lot of women who, they get it. That. Yeah, they get it.
I feel like, especially with the bond of marriage, and while we're talking specifically around this concept, I think women and men, whoever is listening, that they can experience this no matter what the depth or surface of the situation is. I mean, even in loss, if you've lost a family member and you're experiencing that, if you've gone through sickness with your spouse, if you've if they've handled an abandonment of something in their life, and I'm walking through that now just with some family, and you just feel alone.
Yeah.
And like that is the whole purpose of why God put Eve into the world.
Yeah.
Adam was alone, and he didn't want him to feel those emotions and those feelings, and that was why he gave him a mate. And so no matter what type of relationship you're in, especially when in marriage, because you've exchanged this like deep covenant, and then sexual experiences put you into a whole nother level, which is why they say not to have sex before marriage. I wish I learned that lesson. I hope I can teach it to my children, because holy cow, it just breaks. It breaks so much if you can't hold on to that. And I went through Bible studies after Bible studies, being my little C Christian when I was in youth camp and all of those things, and meanwhile having sex. And it's just, you lose a piece of yourself every single time. So here you are, having already done that with your husband, and then knowing that pieces of him were with other people. Like the healing of that, I can only imagine maybe still takes time. I mean, it's been, so how long has it been since that time?
So next week will be 10 years. That marks his confession.
17 years together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was like the point where you were like, okay, come home?
Okay, so the timing of this is very divine.
Yeah.
So he confessed on April 2nd. Yeah. 10 years later, or 10 days later, was Good Friday.
Right.
And at this point, I'm just wrestling with God. Like, I don't want to forgive him. He doesn't deserve my forgiveness. Yeah. So absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know, and this, I had read a book, Hope for the Separated by Gary Chapman. Phenomenal book for anybody who's in this position.
Okay.
It's not like he lays out, like, if this is the situation, do X, Y, Z.
Sure.
He just lays out, like, here's what restoration looks like, separation and divorce. And none of those necessarily lead to happiness unless forgiveness is built into the process. Phenomenal book. And so I read that one, like in a matter of a night, because I'm not sleeping, so I might as well read.
Stay up and read. Yes. I like your style.
Yeah, the couch was my bed for about 4 weeks.
Yes.
And so after reading that, I'm just like, well, God, like, I want to find healing. Like, I want to be healed. I don't want this to define me.
Yeah.
You know, and meanwhile, I feel like I have this big target, this big sign that says, oh, I've been betrayed. My husband cheated on me, which makes me not enough. It makes me not a good enough wife, makes me not a good enough mom. Like, was I not good enough in bed? You know, so you put all these, you know, disappointments on yourself and these failed expectations.
Yeah.
And I'm wrestling with the idea of Good Friday and accepting God's love and God's forgiveness for my sins. And that's kind of when God said, yeah, but your sins are just as equal as Tim's.
Yeah.
And I think as humans and as just believers, we automatically do that. We think that the person who murdered their neighbor is worse off than a little white lie. And God sees sin as equal. But it's a sin consequence that is the difference.
Right.
You know, a white lie consequence is going to be far different than somebody sitting in prison for the rest of their lives.
Right, absolutely.
And so on that Good Friday, I'm just like, okay, like, I want what you are offering me through the cross and through, you know, the crucifixion and the blood, but I want this, but I still don't want to give him my forgiveness. And so wrestling with that all afternoon, and finally I just came to the point where I'm like, okay, God, like, fine, like, just take it. And so I invited Tim home that night, and I told him to bring the communion elements, and we shared communion together on that Good Friday after the kids had gone to bed. And then I said, I forgive you. And I was hoping for, like, like the hallelujah chorus, you know, like this immediate healing and everything to go right back into place. But I felt worse. I really did. And I think in order for us to find healing, when we say, I forgive you, and keeping in mind, forgiveness is not, you don't have to exchange that with the person. I didn't have to tell Tim I forgive you, because forgiveness is vertical. It's exchanging with God, saying, I'm going to allow you to take justice over this person. I'm giving you the situation because I want to have healing. Like, purge me of the toxins so that I can live a holy life. And So in that moment, I felt worse. And I think it continued. Like I actually fell into a depression for many weeks. Just the idea, he came home that night and I still stayed on the couch.
Yeah.
He slept on the floor. He was supposed to stay in the basement. And after he thought I was sleeping, he would come on the floor just in case the kids woke up. And that was like that for many weeks after he came home. And it was just one of those things where, I think for me to heal, I had to really look at myself and go, well, what is my why?
Right.
Why do I feel this way? Right. I met with counselors and, you start to realize that you have wounds from your childhood. And in order to find your why, you really have to dig all the way back to figure out what your present is. Yeah. And if there was 1% of our marriage that failed because of me, I had to own 100% of that 1%.
Yeah, that's so good.
And so that took a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And
a lot of work.
I'd be curious because you've mentioned depression. You've mentioned that you weren't eating. The starvation component of even love and physical touch from the one that was supposed to give it to you here on earth, this special, special bond. So I know it's a journey, but how do you regain your mind, body, soul rejuvenation? Like what practical things did you do in order to keep moving forward?
So there was 3 essentials.
Okay.
So my mom and my go-to girlfriend, they called me every day for at least 6 months. Mm-hmm. And then it was like every other day for that first year. And they would just simply ask me, did you get your essentials done? And those were physical steps that I had to take every day just to start my day. And it was to slap on some deodorant, brush the fur off my teeth, and put a bra on. And if I got those 3 things done, it was a good day.
Good enough day.
Yeah, and sadly, there was a lot of days that even those things were just so much to handle. Like I can't even process like the idea of brushing my teeth and the energy to, put a bra on, mind you, like put my face on. Like I don't have the strength for that. So that was like my starting point. Wow. Like God help me get my 3 essentials done.
Yeah.
And they're pretty basic.
Yeah, but
they're very basic.
I mean, even I'm just thinking from the state of like postpartum, like how hard that was, and that can reach different people is like moms listening in who have struggled in this season, and it's sometimes doesn't go away. And, people just assume that it's right after the baby's born and then magically it's their first birthday and everything is amazing. Yeah. Like I experienced postpartum like later. And then when I was going through my own time frame of just like self-identifying, who am I? Oh, I am a mom because I see these little faces staring back at me. So I have to own that role. Yes. But I don't want to right now. I'm exhausted. I'm mentally and physically and emotionally I want to be checked out. So I can understand like from a depression or even overwhelming anxiety components of I don't want to brush my teeth today. Yeah. And I don't want to put on makeup and I don't want to take a shower and I don't want to get off the couch. But it's just like
one simple step.
Yeah, one thing at a time. Eating was probably that one thing for me to say, okay, I need fuel. Yeah. I need hydration. And I
started
fuel.
with Gatorade.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Get those electrolytes.
I did the Gatorade diet for about a week. Yeah. I mean, it was hard. When I think, too, by having we had daily accountability. So we had daily mentors checking in with us. And that was a key component in our healing because we still have those people in place. Yeah. And I think not just for the one that has the addiction, for the one that's betrayed, but for the person trying to heal. I needed people to hold me accountability so I didn't get stuck in the muck, to stay stuck in that depression or the victim mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
I needed people to come in and say, you've been forgiven of your part, and he's been forgiven. Right. If you daily remind somebody who hurt you, like you hurt me 10 years ago,
Lord.
Like you're not going to make it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So you have to, when I said I forgive you, that became a daily discipline. I mean, it was every hour. Sometimes I would text him, be like, I just had to tell you I forgive you. Wow. An email like, I forgive you. Just so I could verbally speak it out, because the moment moment I would speak it, the enemy had no authority.
That's good.
He had no power over it. So our older two kids have no idea what they were doing, but we would have dance parties. We would crank up the worship music, and I would just be like stomping around the house, like get him out of here, and they would join in with me, and it was just my way of physically telling myself and the enemy, like, you have no grounds here. This is my home, my marriage. Get out.
Get
out.
There's that song, "This is how I fight my battle." That song, I can groove to that song all day long because at some point, sometimes, all you have is to lift up your hands.
Yeah.
There's no words. There's no action. There's no step that you can take in that moment other than to just let it go. Yeah. And that's on any end. And you're speaking to it right now. Like, it doesn't matter if you're on the receiving end or the giving end of a hurt, because hurt comes in so many different packages.
And it's not just a one-time deal, right? Like, you don't just go through one hurt moment in your life. Like, it can be daily for some people.
Yeah. I mean, I love, and this is going to be a huge shift of gears, so hold on. But the component of like shifting to like your sister and that experience, and like, that's so heavy and so much hurt. And I love that we were talking about, God doesn't promise that it's a one and done situation. Okay, you're forgiven and that's it. Yes, that's one and done. Like, you are covered and He's got you. Yeah. But He never says that there's not going to be hurt. He never says that there's not going to be pain. It's going to happen. Does He cause it? No. We, out of our own free will, and then sometimes out of the devil, like bringing on things like what happened to your sister. She's going to have her testimony shared tomorrow, and that just makes me so excited.
So proud of her.
You guys.
Yeah.
So share a little bit about that. And I don't even know I've gotten her name yet. I need to place it on my heart. Tracy.
Yes.
Okay, Tracy.
Yeah. So the confession was in 2009. In 2007, my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer. The December, and then 4 months later, my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 27. And so we're kind of just picking up the pieces from my dad. And mind you, years earlier, when I was in 6th grade, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. So cancer was not a foreign word for us. It was a very common
real
phrase. Yes, it was very, very close to our family. And so he was diagnosed. Tracy was diagnosed, and it was just kind of a shock to us. She was not married. She had not dated. Yeah. And it was immediate that she was diagnosed. A week later, she had a double mastectomy. And then 3 weeks later, she started chemotherapy. Yeah. And we stayed in the Mission House down in Portland, Oregon. Yeah. And there were so many intimate things. When you have a double mastectomy, you can't really do anything. You got drains coming out of you. Yeah. And so we got really close. And our childhood, prior to high school, we were semi-close. But then through our teenage years, we were very distant. There was a lot of jealousy. There was a lot of tension. We shared a bedroom for 17 years. So I don't know if that was like the reason why, but
part of it. But I had similar tension with my sister during those years too.
Yeah, they're just awkward, weird, strange, stupid years,
clothes,
right?
Her boyfriends couldn't talk to me.
And we were just so opposite of each other. And so we had definitely grown apart. And then when she was diagnosed with cancer, it's really, that drew us together. Yeah. It was like an immediate thing. And so I stayed with her. Addison was 2. Wow. And we walked this with her for 2 years. And then Tim's confession. Yeah. And so, again, it's not just a one and done thing. Right. I'm dealing with the burden of being betrayed. Yeah. I'm trying to fix my broken marriage, but I'm also trying to fix my sister and my dad who are processing cancer. Yeah. And so she was diagnosed in 2007. Eventually, it spread to her sternum and her lungs. And then it went to all of her bones, like her pelvic bone, her hip bone, her legs. She eventually lost the ability to do anything physical just because the osteoporosis, which comes from years of chemo, that really started to affect her. And so she was a very outdoorsy person. And so we had made the sister pact well, you physically can't go do these things, so I'll do them for you, and then you can come with me. And so that's when I came up with the 50 by 50, which is a state race in every state in the United States by the age of 50. Just an organized road or trail running race.
Yes,
and so cool. Tomorrow I get my 11th state.
Virginia.
I'm super excited.
That's so cool. I didn't know it was on her behalf. That makes it that much more special.
Yeah.
Do you wear something that you have your tattoo.
I have my tattoo, Habakkuk 319, the pink ribbon, and then I do have a tank top that I wear that's got the pink ribbon, and that's awesome. On the back it's she keeps me running, and it's my sister's name and her birth date and her heaven date. And so so she processed cancer. She was such a warrior. Like she taught me so much in those 10 years. Just and kind of a cool backstory is that before she was diagnosed, she was suicidal. Wow. She was cutting herself. She had an alcoholic problem. Wow. The depression really took over her life. And God didn't bring her cancer as her out, but really cancer saved her life. Yeah. And it gave her purpose in life. She's always wanted to be a missionary. Yeah. And this gave her mission field. Like she was so excited to tell people, like every doctor, every nurse, like, I want to tell you about my Jesus. Yes. Let me tell you about this person. And so eventually, it spread to her bones. It then spread to her left eye. And then it spread to her liver, and that's eventually what killed her. So she passed away 2 years ago, February 17th, 2017. And that was so hard. That was so hard, and yet it was such a moment where it was an honor to be present with her when she took her last breath. She was not supposed to die in her home, but she also had told me I can't die in mom and dad's house. She never talked about death, and if it was just for a couple of minutes, and then she would store it away. Right. And she had only told me her plans for the service. But one thing that I really wanted to capture was her voice. I wanted to freeze frame her voice and her laughter and her smile. And so a year before she passed, we came up with this secret mission of filming her testimony. And so we flew in a friend of ours who's a filmmaker and producer, and he came in and we secretly filmed her testimony. So I've got like 4 to 5 hours of her voice of just this extended testimony.
How cool for your kids too, to have that their aunt forevermore, and experiencing cancer always seems so scary. Like even as an adult,
it is.
It's like so scary, and yet, as children, imagine there's all this unknown because they don't even comprehend what that actually
Our kids
means.
They only knew Auntie to be sick, So for them, and it wasn't really so much a scary thing. There was, and there still is a little bit of fear around doctors. Sure. Or if you say like my son the other day, he had a really bad cough and it would not go away. It lasted for a few weeks, and he goes, Mom, I think you need to make a doctor's appointment. I'm like, oh, buddy, it's just seasonal allergies. Like, you'll be fine. He goes, do you think it's lung cancer? I'm like, no. He goes, are you sure? I'm like, no, honey, if this is just because you have a cough does not mean you have lung cancer. But that is our mind frame, right? Like if you have a headache, you have a brain tumor. And if your stomach hurts, you got stomach cancer, because that's what's just been around us. So for my son, his entire existence with Auntie was around cancer. He hardly missed a single chemotherapy treatment. He was always there. Wow. So both our older 2 kids were present for her when she passed away.
Oh my gosh.
They were
what
there.
An experience. But that's now, just like you said, she's still living out her testimony to be able to share this video tomorrow at your church, but also through the legacy of your children, who, while she didn't have children, she very much had children.
She did.
And so it'll be pretty amazing to see how that is cultivated through their testimony and how they're going to change lives with that strength that so many people don't have. I don't, first off, have it. I'm walking through such an experience right now with someone who has cancer and somebody who just had her double mastectomy and a dear friend of mine. And it's a scary, unknown thing. And all you can do at some point is just, hey, I love you.
Yeah.
And because I'm not right there with them, what can I do? But it's a hard thing to love someone through. So
and it's easier for the person going through it than for us, right? Like it's harder for us because we want to fix it.
Yes.
You know,
part of that. What's your Enneagram? Do you know your Enneagram?
I don't.
Oh, we got to do this.
We're probably the same.
Yeah, that's all. Like we must be. We've got the middle child thing going on. We're trying to fix everyone around us. Older sister, younger brother. So I just every time when you're talking, I'm like, wow, we're so connected on such a heart level, but. I agree. I think it probably is easier for them because they just know, just like you were in that moment where, okay, what do I have to do today to get to tomorrow? What do I have to do today to get to tomorrow? Yeah. And sometimes that's all we have the strength to is, and just like any addiction in the 12-step program, it is, what do they tell you? They tell you, you wake up and you promise yourself today, I'm not going to drink. Today, I'm not going to look at pornography. Today, I'm not going to cheat. Today, I'm not going to lie. Today, whatever your addiction is, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to smoke. I'm not. All of those things, it's one day at a time. And the one day becomes 1 month. And the 1 month becomes 1 year. And the 1 year becomes 1 decade. So I'm just like amazed at the fact you guys are a decade in.
I know. I often tell brides, the broken brides, like, just stay in today. Like, don't get caught up in all the plans for tomorrow or, okay, well, if he doesn't do this, then I'm going to have to file for a legal separation or file for this. And if he doesn't choose, redemption, if he doesn't choose repentance, then I'm going to have to go down this road. Like, no, just stay in today. Yeah. That's all you have to do is just stay in today. Yeah. You have to be realistic and plan out for the future, but you can't get lost in that.
Yeah. And I think it could be the exact same way if you're backpedaling into the past.
Yeah.
And that's, honestly, where fear will take over or the weight of not living up to the expectations that you didn't meet and the worry of what potentially could happen because of this decision. And kids don't think that way.
No.
Kids are like, oh, sorry, on to the next thing.
Yes.
And it's just so quick. They just keep going. They keep going. And it's not about what happened yesterday or the day before. Even if they got in trouble and they got something taken away, they're just like, okay, no big deal. I'll go on to the next thing. Yeah. And I so want that for adults to be able to release. And there was only one way to fully release my past, and it was through baptism. And I was never baptized as a little one. And while my parents would take us to church intermittently, and I knew I was prayed over and things like that from different people in my life, when I got baptized, I had loved Psalm 139 as far as the east is to the west, so are my transgressions removed from my sin. And I got baptized on the West Coast by the person who married us. And I say my husband and I both got baptized, and it was amazing. It was just this out-of-body experience. I just remember actually nastily, they were taking a video of the prayer we were praying before we went into right on Coronado in San Diego. And I was dripping from my nose. And shaking because I shake when I'm super nervous and overwhelmed with emotion. And I just remember being I'm holding these people's hands and there's all these onlookers, but I'm not worried about all of them, but I have snot just dripping from my nose. So I was really excited to go under just to fully cleanse myself.
Yes.
But fast forward a year later, we actually got baptized again on the East Coast in our home, almost connected to the same beach that we got married on. And it, to some people, might have been why are they doing that again? They're taking the limelight again. I think that there's a constant need for that restoration and that place of full release, because every day we sin, and every year there's something new that's uncovered in your marriage, whether it's something that happens or it's something you discover or it's something you grow in a beautiful way together. That moment specifically, because we were alongside Anthony and Morgan, who were on podcast 1 and 2, we went under at the same time for that one. And the first time we went under separately, and not intentionally, it just was the way that it happened. Our relationships with the Lord are individual. You couldn't fall into redemption for your husband. You couldn't get him to the place of just, get to this space so that you can be free. You can't do that for someone. But being baptized alongside your spouse was
It's a special moment.
Holy cow.
We were baptized in 2014. We flew to Kona, where our mentors are the pastor that kicked him out of the house.
I love that they're still close.
So Kim and Ann were present, and we debated inviting family or not, but Kona's just a very special place for us. And so we were February 21st, 2014, we were baptized in the morning. And then later that afternoon, in the evening, we renewed our vows. And it is something special to share in baptism together. But just to symbolize to each other and with God, it is, you just mentioned it. It's so important. I think, in our marriage counseling, it was all about like, you have to come together and just be, you need to have a united relationship with Christ. And it's totally opposite. Like you need to have an individual foundation. You have to have your own personal vertical relationship with Jesus Christ, because if you don't, you can't extend horizontally with anybody else. So you have to be your own individual people and then together make a unified
and to know, because we are imperfect, that we don't have the ability, no matter how amazing your husband is, no matter how amazing you are, you can't fully fulfill that person. No matter how great you are in this moment of your life. I can't make Gary 1,000% happy. My heart is that I would love to do so. I can't even physically give him everything he needs. I can't emotionally, spiritually, none of those things. So to be able to stand on your own 2 feet in the awareness of the love that you have and the exchange, even like you were saying, like, I just needed his touch. Well, physical touch is a love language and very much needed. You also have to be footed in the fact that you are loved, because he is loved.
My identity is here.
And then to have that extra, that's where that love becomes so special with that other person. So I'm so excited that from all of this, there's been so much good and so much restoration and so much rejuvenation. And you mentioned earlier, you said the words well versus hell. And like, that's going to be the title today. It absolutely is, because we go through hell.
We do.
So often here on earth. And my heart breaks for people. The more I comprehend the hells that I've walked through in my life, even as a little baby girl, not even realizing at that moment that that was a living hell, but what that hell in that moment did to me thereafter, I just break for humanity. It's part of the reason that I want testimonies like these shared, that people don't get stuck in those moments of hell, but that they aspire
and they don't identify them. Like, that doesn't define who you are.
No, it doesn't. And it doesn't define that person either, or that, just anything about it. And that is, I'm excited to meet Tim. I just want to give him a hug, because I love that you said after you did all this filming, he was like, "You're welcome." And you're like, what? He literally said, after she filmed all of this information on the things she had learned and how she teaches through Reclaimed Ministries, which we'll talk about in just a second. She spent a whole day doing it, and at the end he was just like, "You're welcome," pat himself on the back, and she's like, "What are you talking about?"
"Oh, you're welcome for giving you such great content."
And you're like, I don't know if I should kick you or kiss you. Either way, I love you.
Yes, we have come to the point in our healing and restoration where we can kind of have these little jokes. And that's just who we are. Like, we joke with each other all the time. We do. We laugh a lot.
That's amazing.
We laugh a lot.
That's amazing. Well, I'm so thankful to have you here. I do want you to talk a bit about what has come of it with what Reclaimed is, how we met at She Speaks, which is an amazing conference by Lisa TerKeurst and Proverbs 31. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, did I say that? Yeah. There's so many ministries that we follow. And it's an opportunity to talk, to learn and share speaking or writing projects that you're doing, as well as just to come into ministry with women. There was 800 other women, and Stephanie and I, we found each other.
Yes, at breakfast over coffee, I think it was.
So random. And I'm just like, I came alone. She came alone. Like, do you need a table? Yeah, great. And so I think that probably, the community is probably the most amazing component. But I drew so much from that. And Reclaimed was one of the reasons you went. So I'd love for you to share and see just in the last year how much growth it's had. I'm so excited.
So 2 years after confession, we our circle was so small, which is huge vital component to healing is not to get all the opinions from everybody.
Good advice on anything.
Yes. Yeah, we don't need all this.
No.
And so our circle was so small, but we were asked by our church to share our testimonies with our church body, which is about 1,500 people. And so that was terrifying because there was family members in church and friends that had no idea. And so this idea of like sharing our dirty laundry with the small town community that is very pretty and, doesn't share messes. We just sweep them under the rug because we have to keep up our outside appearances. The whole idea of stepping out and saying like, we're failures, we failed at this, but we overcame. Let me share that with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So we, that is really what started the ball rolling with this ministry. And, Tim's testimony played, and then 3 weeks later, my testimony played about forgiveness. The CBN TV station, the 700 Club, they got a hold of it. They then were like, can we have your testimony? They came out to our house, and they had done a 2-day session of filming with us, and they've aired that testimony twice now on their station. And that is really what started Reclaimed. Yeah. From that point on, women started contacting me saying, can we meet for coffee? Yeah. And so for about 2 years after that, I met with women and just kind of encouraged them. I went to beauty school. I'm a hairstylist. I am not a counselor. I have no, college education for business or any of that. Like I went to beauty school. Yeah. So God uses anybody.
Yeah, girl. Preach it. I love that.
Yes. Don't look too close at my roots because they are bad. Usually
the lighting's good in here. It's the lighting.
So I'm just going like, God, what do you want me to do? Like I'm meeting with these women. I'm encouraging them. I'm coming alongside and mentoring them, sharing my story, giving them some advice. Here's some resources locally that you can utilize.
Yeah.
And then the women turned it on me and said, why haven't you started a support group? Like, there's nothing. My church is not meeting my need. My pastor is saying I'm the problem, and it's because I'm not having enough sex at home. That's the reason why my husband cheated on me.
Yeah.
My pastor said it's not masturbation. It's not a pornography addiction unless he masturbated in front of the computer. Okay.
Oh, my gracious.
We're in the 20th century. There's
multiple
multiple ways.
Yes. Series. Watch the Levi Lesko series.
Yes. And so these women are being left with nothing, and they feel alone. Yeah. And now they're feeling betrayed by the church because the church isn't coming alongside them and helping them with this. Yeah. And so these women are just saying, like, can you write something? Can you start something? And I'm going, like, beauty school.
Yeah.
I'm not a writer. Like, this is not me. And so I kept on being challenged. And eventually I wrote a 6-week curriculum. That then turned into a 12-week curriculum guide, which is your Reclaim Small Group Guide. And so this is the Leader's Guide. This has all the information for a leader who has the experience of betrayal to lead a small group of women, usually about 5 to 7 women at a time. To take them through this course and to really work on understanding, first off, that we can only change ourselves. We can't change other people. But really focusing on the personal healing, focusing on the woman's heart. And, the hardest person to forgive was myself. It wasn't Tim, it was me.
Wow.
And so we dive into the topics of betrayal and triggers and weariness, and we work through topics like forgiveness and how to trust again, and what does hope look like, and what does the first date look like, whether it's in a marriage that's working on restoration, whether it's a separation, or whether you're a woman who's gone through divorce. Yeah. These women come into these groups, and it is powerful. It's such a humbling experience to walk with these women. Sure. And so that is something that has been birthed out of my own experience. And then with that was the Reclaimed 30-day devotional, which essentially is a small group just in an extended form.
Right.
And so you've got
beautiful.
All of my intimate details in there. There's
really?
A lot of
all the juicy stuff.
Yes, a lot of juicy stories in there.
Yes. Beautiful.
So you've got in there parts of my journal. You've got other women's stories in there.
Wow. Wow.
So you feel heard. You feel like you're not alone in this journey.
Wow.
You've got the devotional. You've got questions that really start to get into the dark places of your heart that are hard to process, but are necessary for healing. Yeah. And then scripture verses. What does God say about this?
Yeah.
And so that is the journey. And over the past, since she speaks, since last July,
so amazing.
God has just taken this, and we are now an official 501c3 nonprofit organization.
That's hard to do. It takes forever.
So that's really exciting.
That's awesome.
And we've self-published these books. You can find them on Amazon.com. You can also go to reclaimedministry.com, and you can find the links there. And we've got small groups across the United States happening.
So
it is
awesome.
just, again, I just keep on saying it's just so humbling to be a part of.
So amazing. And I know based on your journey here and your testimony being shared both this way but also intimately with some people locally, that we're going to have a small group of this somehow that you guys are going to be welcome to come into. So if you have any questions or any thoughts, I might not be the right person to answer it, but I know somebody who is. And so I'm so thankful for you being authentic and open and sharing all the hard moments. And I think the biggest thing is that the comment about the 1%, like that will literally never leave me. I think that that's one of the most brave things to recognize, that we all pour into problems.
Yeah.
No matter which side of the story you're on, and there's 3 sides to every story.
Yes.
And so I'm grateful to just get to know you today and share you with the Fit and Faith podcast world. And I'm so excited for what God's going to do.
Me too.
As this continues to grow, because it is such a need and such a void. And I'm ready for people to just be fully well. I mean, that's literally my whole heart for what I do. So
we all deserve the chance to be whole, right?
Yeah, we really do.
Absolutely.
Boom.
Yes.
That's a good ending. Thank you so much, Facebook. Instagram cut off a while ago. So thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, definitely direct message us. We're excited that you jumped on today on this beautiful Saturday in Virginia Beach, and we will be back soon. See ya.
I'm Tamara Andress. I'm your Fit and Faith host, and I am so excited to just be here to share with you other movers, dreamers, shakers, entrepreneurs, pastors, whatever. If you've got a head and you've got a heart, I'm so excited to explore who that is, whose you are, and discover your wholeness, your health, your wealth, and your joy. I love to exude happiness. I want people to know that this is not, this came with trial. You guys, this came with a lot of effort. This came with a lot of lows and so many highs. And I want us to experience those together. This is a real community of dreamers, and I'm excited to help catapult your calling, your kingdom experience, the purpose of your imprint on the world, wherever, however that is. So come along for the ride. I'm excited to chat with you. Like, comment, review. Send me a DM, send me an email. It's me responding, even though I have an incredible team. And so I'm just excited to get to know you. Let's connect, let's create community, and let's walk in our calling.